with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, August 1st, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, 15 months out from the 2024 election, Biden's poll numbers slightly tick up despite poor favorability. Meanwhile, new testimony shows Hunter Biden was selling the illusion that he could influence his dad in Comer's latest flop. Trump's super PAC, Save America, has spent almost all of its money on lawyers. And the way that they spent that money, they're going to need more. Fulton County judge rejects Trump's attempt to quash the Georgia grand jury. Teamsters locals vote 161-1 to endorse the UPS agreement. Rank and file voting starts on Thursday. Meanwhile, rolling strikes against LA hotels continue. Oklahoma is sued to stop its plans for the first state-funded religious school in the country. Phoenix, meanwhile, recovering from its record-breaking extreme heat streak. And if you're holding student debt, enrollment now open for income-driven relief. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Hospitalizations still at an all-time low, but are beginning to tick up. Recently, a reminder: COVID not dead yet. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is
Newsday Tuesday.
There you go. That was well timed. The way that Emma came right in there.
Just fading right in. Telling you what day it is.
Non-birthing person on the IM says there's 1,200 live viewers on YouTube, but only 200 likes. I know libertarians like MR, but didn't know they are the majority. I don't know what that means.
Well, like the stream.
Oh, God. All right. So, hit the like, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hit the like. Why am I? What's
Engagement.
going on with where am I sitting? What is? No, I got this. You stay there. I'm going to do this a little bit. There we go.
All right.
All right. Now, people are writing in, my name is Vivek. I'm here to say I'm rapping in the libertarian way. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. 3, 4, I hate the poor. Honestly, like literally just before the show started, I was like, I really hope Vivek wins the nomination. That would be.
So Fox and friends, join us on the trail. We'll have some fun. I'll see you out the trail.
I could listen to that for like a half hour.
I know.
You're saying that you haven't, right? I mean, that's
That's how I warm up.
yeah.
I like that. I like actually his voice is actually, I like his voice too.
Good
It's not
delivery.
I mean, it's so, let's get, we'll get into some news, but I just want to give you, the SAG after strike, the writer's strike continues. We are now in week 4. Mm-hmm. I think it's just starting, right? Of the SAG after strike. Yes. And here is a couple of clips from last week. I'm going to be down there Thursday. They only do it in the mornings.
Oh,
so
right.
I'm not exactly sure why that is.
Giving out your assassination coordinates.
Well, there's multiple locations, so nobody knows where I'll be.
Good point.
Here is let's do Bryan Cranston first. This is Bryan Cranston from last week. He really laid into Bob Iger, and well, I want to just like note one interesting dynamic in this strike that we haven't seen in the past because of the change in the nature of the industry. But here's Cranston, and this is out in L.A., right? Yeah. Oh, this is in New York? Oh, this is Times Square one. Okay.
I find it very, very ironic that we are all gathered here today in unity in front of an entity that is run by Disney. And now we've got a message for Mr. Iger. I know, sir, that you look through things through a different lens. We don't expect you to understand who we are, but we ask you to hear us, and beyond that, to listen to us when we tell you we will not be having our jobs taken away and giving to robots. We will not have you take away our right to work and earn a decent living. And lastly, and most importantly, we will not allow you to take away our dignity. We are union through and through, all the way to the end. Thank you. God bless you. Stay together. We will win this fight. God bless you.
Yeah, he's got a lot of gravitas.
Yep.
He should look into acting.
And well, but and here's the thing. Again, this is a guy who is not impacted by any of this at this point, right? I mean, he doesn't. When you see the stars and the actors who have had this type of success, you're seeing people who their pay supersedes what the SAG-AFTRA minimums required are. Their deals basically ride on top of what SAG, the union, requires. And so they're out there fighting for the literally tens, 30, 40, 50, 60, I mean, really 30,000 other, there's 160,000 SAG-AFTRA. They're out there fighting really for the other 155,000 members of the, I'm just picking a number, but
87% earn less than 26,000 a year.
And 26,000 is the cutoff for health insurance there. And so this is a big fight for a lot of working class folks who are working other jobs as well while they're trying to make it into acting. And the fact is that when you see the end product of any given show, for every person you see on that screen, there was 100, maybe 200 who came in for an audition and didn't get paid for that audition. Maybe they came in for multiple auditions. For every single, guest star, lead, there are hundreds of others putting in their labor that end up that provide sort of like the opportunity for casting directors and for producers to choose one who works best in that role. That's the way the industry works. I don't know if there's any other way to work it, but you need to be able to pay off for all of that unpaid work that goes into it that ultimately makes the shows that you like. And it's the same thing with the writers. For every script, show that you see, there's been, 10x scripts written that never get picked up. Here is Ilana Glazer from the Broad City.
Yeah.
And here she's, I guess, is on the Betches News podcast.
Going off on billionaires, they dehumanize us. They dehumanize their workers. They even dehumanize the handsome white blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy that they want to be, who's their avatar. In their minds, they're fucking Matt Damon. They even dehumanize him. They are so far off from what humanity is. These billionaires do not move their bodies among people. They do not travel next to people. They do not sweat near other people. They literally don't understand what's happening. And I'm pissed, I'm angry, but I'm like, actually they're weak-minded. They truly thought that they could write off actors. You thought you could write off Meryl Streep, bitch? You thought you could write off Jason Bourne? He left his press, dog. And these billionaires want to go to space. Go! Why do you even want TV and film? And we don't need them to spiritually or intellectually get there. We just need them to agree to the negotiations. It is disturbing that they thought that they could overlook it.
The interesting dynamic here that is different from, let's say, the writer's strike that took place in 2008 or
7?
No, it was 2008 or 9. I can't remember exactly when it was. It was
Writer's strike?
Maybe it was 2007. Yeah, it was maybe 2007 actually. Now, the big difference between then and we haven't had a substantial actors strike that has gone on this far since I think 1960 or 62. The big difference between the writer's strike from 15 years ago and today is that you have this the AMTP. I can't even remember. The Producers Association, and at that time, it was made up of studios and producers and networks who were all basically on the same business model. You have different players in there that may have slightly different dynamics as to what they've invested in or what they anticipate their future in. Some, networks may be more interested in reality shows, others less so. But now with streamers and the tech sort of industry in it, right? Amazon and Apple, and even Netflix. With streamers, you have really different models of how they're going to make their money and where they see their future revenues lying. And then the disparity between an Amazon and a Netflix and an Apple in terms of where they see their revenues coming is also more less homogenous, I guess, than amongst the sort of old Hollywood type of players. And the reason why I think there's more power, in addition to the fact that there's definitely more unity amongst the unions, amongst within the writers' union, within the SAG-AFTRA, the producers, their interests are not as aligned as they have been in the past. And that's going to provide an opportunity for some of them to go we need to peel off now. And that's going to be interesting to see as we go on. But it's going to start getting really hard for actors and writers in particular. I mean, it's going to start getting hard.
Well, so you should donate if you have the ability to the strike fund, right? I mean, I saw that The Rock, we mentioned this before, made a 7-figure donation, which is amazing. But reality TV, it's not a coincidence that its golden era and when it really took off was 2007, 2008.
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, they did that to circumvent the writers. And the irony is that the reality stars facing the same issue right now that a lot of the actors are, in that the shows that are on streaming, they're not getting residuals either.
Right.
And so...
And we should also say, I got some bad news for you about the reality shows.
Yeah,
they're scripted.
They're
not word for word, not scripted, but the scenarios. I mean,
but the early stuff that really got it kicked off, like those Jersey Shore kids, were treated like garbage, and they don't see any of the residuals that they get from that being one of the most popular shows of all time. So they should unionize too.
Got more news to cover, but first, a word from one of our sponsors today, Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned Canadian aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station, the Mars rover, and now they are bringing their precision engineering to your shaving experience. I have here in my hand a Henson shaver. You've used disposable shavers. You've used the ones with the handles where you got to keep getting the blades sent to you by mail and whatnot. The reason why your disposable shavers are uncomfortable, the reason why you get nicks, the reason why you get scrapes, turns out it is not because the blade is not sharp enough or whatnot. You can make the blade sharp. The issue turns out to be the length from which the blade is distance between that and the razor, the stability of the blade. And these guys use a numeric
control
machines. I can't ever remember that. Their razors extend just 0.0013 inches, less than the thickness of a human hair. And that means a secure blade and a stable blade with a great shave. Plus, I don't know if you can see that here, they got these built-in channels to evacuate the hair, so you don't have to bang it on your sink, or you use your thumb. Don't do that. That scares the hell out of me. I can't even talk about that.
Scary.
I got caught on a deli slicer when I back when I was a kid. Yeah, sorry. Anyways, I shouldn't have brought that up, but it was horrible. So now I think about that. But here's the thing about this, and my only explanation is that these guys are Canadian, because they entered into the razor business. They didn't want to be necessarily the best razor business in terms of like model, where they hook you in on subscriptions and you got it, or their blades are proprietary or whatnot. They want it to be the best razor. So here's the deal. You buy this razor, and they actually have a couple of different models on their site. And it's really, I mean, it feels good. It's,
I said that to you. Good. I was like, this is like too good of a deal. They send you all those blades and you just don't have to worry about it.
Well, here's the thing. You buy this, and then the blades are the non-proprietary, sort of like classic, old school dual edge blades. They cost you, I don't know, anywhere from like $3 to $5 a year. And if you buy a Henson shaver right now, they're giving the Majority Report listeners a 2-year supply of blades for free. You just go to hensonshaving.com/majority. That's Henson, HENSON, shaving.com/majority. You got to make sure you add the razor pack. You add a razor, and then you take the 100 pack of blades. Make sure you put that in your cart. Enter the code majority. You will get the blades for free. The link is in the description. It is a great shaver. I don't know what to tell you. I've got the black model at home. Ooh. Yeah, I like the look of it. So check it out. We'll put a link in the podcast and YouTube description. All right, let's just look briefly at these new polling. We talked about the polling yesterday. Donald Trump is dusting Ron DeSantis. Still fun to see. Now, here's the other thing. Donald Trump, or Joe Biden for that matter, could have a heart attack in the next year. Mm-hmm. So you don't know. But
and if he's the nominee, I think it's a better chance that Biden wins, but he's still the nominee. And that's a scary proposition in and of itself. Trump could be the president once again.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not to just discount that.
I just got 2 IMs here. How do you know how good that blade feels with that luscious beard, Sam? Just asking questions. To be honest with you, like, this is it. Right here, right here, right here, and right here.
Yeah. But I now have 2 people in my life using that, and they're full shavers, and they're loving it.
I'm woking from home says, honestly, shout out to Henson. Glad they sponsored the show. I've suffered from awful razor burn my whole adult life, but it has dramatically improved since trying the Henson shaver.
There you go.
Anyways, okay, so Biden polling numbers out. The thing that I find interesting about this is just a reminder as to like sort of what people base their votes on. Joe Biden would not have been my choice in 2020. Well, he wasn't in the primary, but I don't know who I would prefer as a nominee in 2024.
Not exactly spoiled for choice.
No, but I mean the bottom line is it is very difficult to unseat an incumbent. The entire party apparatus obviously is in favor of it. And the biggest complaint about Biden, it seems, at least from the core Democratic voters, is that he's old, and he is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. The Biden is in a neck and neck race with Donald Trump. They're tied at 43% at a hypothetical rematch in 2024. This is according to a Times Siena poll. But if you can believe it, that's actually there are numbers. There's an improvement here for Biden. 30% of the voters who said they plan to vote for Biden in November 2024 said they hoped the Democrats would nominate someone else. Just 20% of Democrats said they would be enthusiastic. Another 51% say they would be satisfied, but not enthusiastic. But this is up because at one point, like several months ago, 65% of Democrats did not want him to be the nominee. Biden had the backing of 64% of Democrats who planned to participate in their party's primary, an indicator of soft support for an incumbent president. 13% preferred Robert Kennedy Jr., which is frankly, I mean, shocking to me. And I think that I would like to see what his support would be in a Republican primary, because most of his campaigning, it seems to me, to be geared towards that. 10% chose Marianne Williamson, which I think is a pretty good showing. Among Democratic poll respondents who have a record in voting in a primary before, Biden enjoyed a far wider lead, 74 to 8%. He had 92% to 4% among those who voted in a Democratic primary in 2022. So in other words, the most enthusiastic Democratic, conscientious Democratic voters support Biden overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just sort of weird, though, when they start to like interview different individuals. A common view toward Mr. Biden is illustrated in voters like Melody Marquez, 54, a retiree and a left-leaning independent from Tyler, Texas. Ms. Marquez, who voted for Biden in 2020 as the lesser of two evils, can understand that, was not happy about his handling of the pandemic. It's unclear what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could go both ways.
Blaming him for inflation and a tight labor market. Yeah, now Matt just went like, what? Still, she would vote again for Mr. Biden, who is 80 years old. This is what gets, she's a left-leaning independent. So it suggests to me that she's actually probably voted for Republicans more, because if she's 54 and a retiree, she obviously is, her work situation, her financial situation, probably not too bad. I mean, it's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
I can't retire right now. She was unhappy about a tight labor market. Why would you be unhappy about a tight labor market if you are?
She's probably a small business owner.
There's
right?
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, like this
collecting
is the thing.
passive income. Maybe she's a landlord.
People don't want to work anymore.
It is a weird weird thing. I mean, it's a weird thing that the Times include this type of like sort of like this is a common view. It seems like a very odd view.
Though they love that. They love finding a voter that's going to be a little bit unique and make their story easier.
And also be a small business.
And but she goes on to say, "I'm sorry, but both of them to me are too old." She's right. Joe Biden to me seems less mentally capable age-wise, but Trump is just evil. He's done horrible things. I mean,
that's true.
Yeah. Mr. Biden has recovered significantly from last summer. Again, last summer, Times Siena poll, same poll, found 64% of Democrats said they did not want the party to renominate him, including 94% of Democrats under the age of 30. Now, only half of all Democrats said they did not want Biden to be the nominee in 2024. Mayama Langham, 38, a government analyst from Atlanta who described herself as a political progressive not aligned with the party. Again, like they're looking for people who describe themselves as sort of like your center, left of center voter, said Mr. Biden's tax policy had been skewed to favor the wealthy while the middle class paid more than its fair share. We're kind of smushed in the middle. We're taking the brunt of taxes for everybody. Now, this is just like, this is why I'm reading this is to let you know just sort of like how these bizarre narratives get fixed in people's heads. There have been, well, first of all, what she's saying is completely not the case. There is no Joe Biden tax policy for the middle class that has changed whatsoever. The only changes that ever existed to the tax policy would have been in a, they didn't pass anything. It would have been in the Inflation Reduction Act, the CARES Act, the American Rescue Act, or the Secure 2.0 Act. In the first one, the American Rescue Act, the only changes in tax policy were child tax credits that literally paid people who had kids $300 a month per each kid.
Yeah, but that's been sunsetted or it expired for over a year at this point.
Yes.
So what could she possibly be complaining about?
Well, it's possible that she perceived that as a
hike.
I'm not sure. I doubt it, because it doesn't code as a tax, right? Like it's just you're not getting a payment. The Inflation Reduction Act had a 30% tax credit for solar or like geothermal or wind power or whatever it was. There were also tax credits for EVs. Like this is all like tax breaks. There were subsidies for insurance under the Affordable Care Act that were extended. There was a 1% tax on the value of stock buybacks by corporations.
Who can object to that?
There was a 15% corporate minimum tax. There was never a tax hike on anywhere near the middle class. There was changes in required minimum distributions from your pension fund, but that was all to the benefit of people who wanted more money. There are adjustments to the 2023 tax brackets, but that has to do with like the top bracket. And that is a 2.6%. Oh, no, that doesn't happen until 2025. I mean, so it's just bizarre because there has been no change to this woman's taxes, personal taxes under Biden, yet she's convinced that there is. And it just gives you a sense of like, this is what.
Like what motivates people is inherently bizarre, often contradictory, nonsensical. But for the most part, I don't really hear much about the use of inclusive language for trans people. Is that really affecting people?
It doesn't seem to be into the polls. Ashlyn Cowan, 27, a research scientist from Nashville, said she wished Biden had been more aggressive about canceling student loan debt. This at least is like, she's an informed voter. Even before, and then it goes on to say, nevertheless, Cowan said she would back Biden in a race against Trump. You have Trump that has shown characteristics I'm staunchly against, and Biden just not being the greatest person to do the job. Ultimately, Biden's is not going to harm the country as much as I believe Trump would, which I think is a pretty straightforward take on this. With that said, and I think it is, I think there's an argument to be had about Biden not being aggressive enough, without a doubt. And, you know, there are people I think have legitimate arguments as to maybe Biden could have used a different tact in terms of dealing with the Supreme Court. I think there's also an argument that it was going to fail at the Supreme Court regardless. And but I think there's still some arrows in that quiver.
There's messaging arrows in the quiver.
Without
I mean,
a doubt.
the problem is like that, you know, Biden has done some good things.
Well,
but
yes,
it's not been communicated in any meaningful way.
Also, I mean, with student loan debt, I mean, what like Dayan and the prospect got is like they should have done the method they're doing now immediately in the first like week.
Without
then we
a
would
doubt.
have got to this point.
Exactly. And so getting to that, it is now the SAVE option, I guess it is. The SAVE student loan repayment plan is now live. The website, it's in beta, but it is worth going there now. studentaid.gov/LDR, or excuse me, IDR for income-driven repayment. It's on the studentaid.gov site. Here it is. This is, and supposedly the Biden plan, the original plan, which frankly should have been $50,000, but if the Supreme Court had okayed Biden's plan, it was projected to provide $400 billion worth of relief. If everybody eligible for this plan, the income-driven repayment plan, signs up, it's projected to provide $360 billion worth of relief. But it is, those dollar figures may be somewhat equivalent, but you got to keep in mind, getting a $10,000 or $20,000 debt relief today is worth more money to the individual than it might be 10 years out. Does that follow? Obviously,
Yes.
You want to defer, you want any money you can put in your pocket today, essentially, or get lopped off. But nevertheless, instead of paying 10% of discretionary income a month toward undergraduate student debt under the previous pay-as-you-earn retirement plan or repay plan, borrowers will eventually be required to pay just 5% of their discretionary income under the SAVE plan. Those who make less than $15 an hour won't need to make any payments under the new option. And here's how it works. Also, they are changing the definition. So reduces what undergraduate loan borrowers pay monthly from 10% to 5% of discretionary income. Increase what is considered non-discretionary income protected from repayment. So, in other words, not only do you pay only 5% of discretionary income, what constitutes discretionary income will be decreased. So you'll be paying half the percentage on a lesser amount. And there will be no monthly payment required of borrowers making below 225% of the federal poverty level, which is for a family of two. That means if your family of two makes less than $44,000, you are required to make no payments. If you're a family of three, $54,000. Family of four, $67,000. You will be required to make no payments whatsoever. After 10 years of payments, instead of 20 years, if your original loan balance was $12,000 or less, you have no more balances. You have no more payments to make. That's going to help like a lot of community college students and a lot of people who went to a college, probably a for-profit college, and dropped out relatively quickly. The new application supposedly takes 10 minutes or less. and you can sign up now. It is a beta system, so still in the beta phase. So they're still sort of like testing the thing, but you can sign up for it and it will count. It's just that there may be a bug or two.
It's something in the interim while they try to hopefully do what they initially should have done that Matt referenced earlier, which is using the Higher Education Act.
Yes. Again, unclear whether, but I think they probably want to work this through the system, get this done, try and get it unchallenged, and then launch that. But who knows? But that's just a reality. But at the very least, what's encouraging is that at least that 27-year-old knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
The others were secretly business owners that they called Democrats. Like that's why it's not helpful. Like we need more information than I think of myself this way on election day. That's less relevant. Do you own a business? Like do you have student loan debt? Like that's actual relevant information.
Right. And we should say let's see. The income caps on the IDR plan are abysmal. $67K for a family 4 is poverty. This is worse than the income cap from the initial plan. No. It's not an income cap. That is, if you make less than that, you owe no payments. It's not a cap as to whether you get relief. The relief happens for everybody. But if you make less than $67,000 for a family of 4, you have no payments. So it is not an income cap. So I want to make that clear. It is not an income cap. It applies to everyone. Also, payments not made in the first 12 months will not be considered delinquent because they're ramping up this thing. Is this only apply for undergraduate loans? I'm not sure about that, but I think so. But here's the point about the polling. It is national polling, and largely that is largely irrelevant. Joe Biden is going to get more votes than Donald Trump. The Democrat is almost more than likely going to get more votes than the Republican nationally. I don't think that's going to change.
I mean, when's the last time that it didn't? 2004?
2004.
Yeah. And the one before that was
not the case.
Not the case.
Al Gore had more votes. This election is going to come down to about like a half a dozen states. It's going to be Arizona. It's going to be Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia and Wisconsin, Nevada, maybe North Carolina. That's basically where it's going to play out. And in Georgia, remember, Biden won like by what? Like 1,000 votes? And there's a story today, in the Times. And again, hard to know.
But it does match with what Democrats have been saying they're concerned about, which is black turnout. It was down 10% in 2020.
Biden won by 11,000 votes in Georgia last time in 2020. But there is I think there's probably a lack of enthusiasm across the board for Democratic voters, but black people make up the core of the Democratic base, frankly, and particularly in Georgia, they're 32%, almost 33% of the electorate. If in 2020, according to the Times, if less than 1% of black voters had voted for Trump or stayed home, Biden loses. And the real issue is staying home. Like, how do you get people to come out when it is hard for them to see any demonstrable change? Now, you can argue Biden tried. Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema. I think there was I'm not going to relitigate the fact that I think that they should have come in after March, after passing the American Rescue Act, and they should have done it quick, and they definitely should have. And Biden's like sort of playing footsie and with the Republicans to make it look like he was being bipartisan, and then allowing Sinema to push a plan and then splitting that up. et cetera, I think was at best incompetence. At worst, just a way of like sort of, pulling back on their ambitions.
Well, he wanted to bring Republicans in.
I mean,
and that's so when we read those quotes from all those voters, that's what they were thinking about, right? Were the Republicans pulled into the negotiations on Biden's domestic?
You'll read a bunch of general election stuff. Like, I just want them to get along and do stuff.
Right, but the nature of the nature of them getting along, like the daily minutia of the drama on Capitol Hill, is not changing that persuasion, right? I mean, they generally want you to get along, but no one remembers when or why people didn't get along.
Right. No, it's just not the way that government generally works.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the situation there. It's early. It's super early, and we'll see. Again, in a month, into the fall, we'll invite some candidates on. Right now, it looks like Marianne Williamson is out there, and I wouldn't mind talking to Cornel West as well to just get an idea of like what policies it would be nice if we're more centered in our political discussion, but that is not the era that we're in at the moment. In many respects, the failure of getting a Bernie Sanders elected in the primary, still sort of resonates. And, from an electoral standpoint, the left part of the Democratic Party is still sort of regrouping, I think. I mean, I don't even know who, it feels like we're still a decade off from having, any type of like real actors there. But with that said, there's just simply no doubt that the Democratic Party hasn't moved in that direction over the past 10 years. I did not anticipate Joe Biden proposing the Build Back Better bill. And there is no reason for a sitting president to propose something that was going to fail so spectacularly as his proposal did. There's no political value in that. I think he's still recovering, frankly, from the failure of getting that on board. And the further we get out from it, the less there's this perspective of his incompetence. But meanwhile, the Republicans continue to try and generate the Biden crime family narrative, and they're not doing a very good job. They had closed door
interview, basically.
Yes, testimony from a former Hunter Biden associate, a guy named Devin Archer, who apparently was investigated and convicted under the Trump administration of I'm not sure what he was. He's about to get sentenced.
Fraud charges.
Fraud charges.
He defrauded a number of like indigenous tribes out of thousands, and he had to pay back pay of like $15 million.
Classy guy. Classy guy.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
And they brought him in. Now, you're probably wondering why would the Republicans not want this guy to testify in public?
Yeah. I mean, don't they want the public to hear about this associate of the Biden crime family? By the way, that the indigenous fraud scheme was unrelated to Hunter Biden.
Right. This was just another business proposition of this guy. In the nearly 5 hours of closed-door testimony in the House Oversight Committee, Devin Archer, former partner, asserted that the elder Mr. Biden was not party to any of his son's business deals and that Hunter Biden had tried to sell the illusion that he was providing access to his powerful father when he was not. This is classic sort of like fail son nepotism that we see in the context of politics all the time. I don't know whether it's like Billy Carter. I don't know if anybody remembers him. Billy Boy would he got caught peeing outside, and that was a big, but all of them. Hillary Clinton's brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Like all of them.
It's called job hunting for rich kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and the Trump kids would never trade on their name.
And the Republicans are trying to argue that Biden lied when he claimed that he had no involvement in his son's business dealings, because apparently what Hunter Biden would do is he would be with business associates. He would call his dad on speakerphone, and they would just like, "Hey, Dad, what's up?" And it was not clear that Joe Biden was aware that there was anybody else in the room. And it was just a way of Hunter proving that I'm not alienated from my father. Now, we should be clear. Some of this happened while Joe Biden was vice president, which also in 2015 is the time where Hunter Biden's brother and Joe Biden's son, Beau, was dying of brain cancer. And Biden, probably knowing that his son was an F-up, is going to answer the phone calls. And, you know, the trauma associated with having been in a car accident with your mom and your sister and your brothers and ending up in the hospital with your mom and your sister killed in the car accident. I mean, I can understand how that may very well screw you up for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And, but here is James Comer on Sean Hannity's show. Again, like hope springs eternal. They're coming on to deliver the goods, but they don't quite have it.
Yes or no? Do you believe that this is now officially the Joe Biden bribery allegation? And do you believe that you will be able to prove that? Jim Comer.
I sure hope so. And I do believe that there's a lot of smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. We just heard testimony today that Joe Biden had lied to the American people.
Yeah, that testimony lied to the American people was that he had no, conversations about business or business dealings with Hunter Biden. And the testimony was clearly by the witness that Hunter Biden was trying to sell the illusion that he had access to his dad.
Illusion in quotes, according to at least what we hear. Because again, this was a closed door meeting. If they thought this was so damning, you think that the Republicans wouldn't put this in front of the American people?
Well, we put that back up. Why is Jim Jordan Jim Jordan looks like he's afraid the next question is going to be like, well, have you thought if you really want to talk about smoke and fire, what about the guy in the window next to you, Comer, who had multiple former wrestling athletes testify that Jim Jordan completely ignored their pleas and complaints about a sexual predator?
Yeah, Jim Jordan coming in. Yeah, sometimes there is smoke without fire. There's no fire.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not get carried away.
Could be a smoke machine or something.
And I love to, this was yesterday, but Comer was trying to say, because I guess on Saturday or over the weekend, the sentencing for Devin Archer was handed down, or when he was supposed to report to prison for that fraud charge. And Comer was like, suspicious timing right before he's supposed to testify. And it's like, well, I mean, wouldn't they try to sentence him so he couldn't testify, so he would go to prison first? It makes no sense, but they're just grasping.
And who scheduled the testimony?
Yeah.
It's
right.
Comer.
It's you guys.
And incidentally, Archer was prosecuted and convicted during the Trump administration. Here is Byron Donalds, who is probably having to do some penance for daring to come out and say Ron DeSantis, his education standards teaching that slavery had some personal benefit for the enslaved. here he's coming out trying to get in on the something suspicious here.
Let me bring this for people to really see how this makes sense. Okay. I'm a member of Congress. I have 3 sons. My 2 older sons have cell phones. If I'm in a meeting and they call me, sometimes I can't call them back. Sometimes I can't call them back for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. Joe Biden is at the ready, waiting for Hunter's call to be able on the phone with people, just say, hey, how's the weather? This stinks to high heaven. It is public corruption. Hunter Biden is the bag man, and Joe Biden is the influence peddler, pure and simple.
And speaking...
Yes, if you pick up your son's calls, you know what that means? You're corrupt.
Something very suspicious going on here. That's too good of a father.
Right.
And there's no, I mean, there's no evidence that, or I mean, let's just, it's not clear that Joe Biden was in the middle, like he was sitting down with, I don't know, Netanyahu, and like, I got to take this. Let me put him on speakerphone. Hey, Hunter. But again, when Joe Biden was vice president and was taking these calls in 2015, his other son was dying of brain cancer. And he's also aware that Hunter is a mess. It's just the level of desperation. I don't know what the Republicans could attack Joe Biden on. I don't, from what side. They tried with Afghanistan when he pulled out of Afghanistan. I'm trying to say like what they could attack him from the right or left. There are no issues. They realize that. Because the Republicans are not motivated by this. But I'll tell you what, I would be surprised if anything less than 65% of Republican voters believe that Joe Biden is guilty of some form of like Chinese bribery. Yeah. And I'd be surprised if it's anything like that.
Yeah. Remember when Tucker Carlson defended Chris Cuomo because he was standing up for his brother? Like, you wouldn't stand up for your brother. It's family. Like, right? Like the implication here, like, it even goes to that little image of Biden being in a meeting with Netanyahu and like taking his son's phone. Like the implication here is Biden is so loyal to family that for like a skim off the top of one of his son's business deal, he's going to throw over the interests of the United States and his sort of what he would prefer as the way to govern and do foreign policy, which is like an insane. He's not that kind of guy.
No, he's not. I mean, he's not even the kind of guy that, like, I think Digby was saying this on Friday. Not saying Biden's some saint, but he has not cashed in on his name in the way that other Democrats have, in the way that Obama has, in the way that Hillary Clinton has. He's much more low key.
That's because he's getting all this Chinese money.
I mean, when's the last time he worked in the private sector?
Not that much. To be the vice president, you're going to give me like a piece of $5 million to completely like I've been senator for 50 years. Yeah. Get in this position, and the payoff is going to be a couple $100,000.
Like he's an agent for like a mid-level, like a replacement level NBA player. Like that's not enough money to like sell it out the United States.
As vice president.
I know when Biden was corrupt, he was just in the ways that all of them are, which was that he was like beholden to the credit card companies in Delaware, as opposed to what all these other guys have done is been in the private sector, then come into government and then do everything for your other employer, or, you know, literally take like plane rides with billionaires and then do their bidding. Biden's very much on the lower end of standard boilerplate DC corruption.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's Political Action Committee, which started with $105 million, has last year with less than $4 million left in its account. The PAC is called Save America.
And it's clear we have to just delineate what the difference is between a PAC and a super PAC, just to remind people here. Because Trump's Save America PAC is directly associated with him. And there are more restrictions on PACs in that way. Donation limits to PACs are $5,000. Super PACs, no
disclosure.
Limits, no disclosure. And they're supposedly independent of the candidate. But that's never the case. It's just a way to legalize, really, corruption. And this is an example of it.
And so Trump controls how his PAC is spent. Save America. The super PAC he doesn't control. They had raised money through his PAC sent it to the super PAC, and now they're asking for the money back because they need to pay lawyers. The money was supposed to go to television commercials. The super PAC one was.
And a lot of that super PAC money has been spent mostly on anti-DeSantis ads, which is fun.
Right. That's the Make America Great Again, Inc. And it's already sent back like $13 million practically to pay for Trump's legal bills. In
multi-million-dollar chunks.
Which is almost all that the super PAC raised at the beginning of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. It's also probably illegal, but there doesn't seem to be any rules.
Well, there's no way to know that the money that they're getting back is the same money that was donated. And it seems like a way to circumvent that $5,000 donation limit when you're getting refund payments from the super PAC. And it also, I would say, brings up a level of potential illegal coordination between said super PAC and the political PAC.
No.
It should be a campaign finance crime, but that doesn't apparently exist in this country.
It's a finance crime, and I'm going to do the finance crime.
Yeah.
That's his rap. We should... I just want a couple of words before we go into the fun half. And we'll talk about DeSantis and Vivek then. One, there is an uptick in the one of the ways in which you could see COVID surges coming is to look at the sewerage of any particular city. And it shows up there very early, apparently. And there's been a big uptick in the COVID in the sewage. We still, right now, hospitalizations are still at their lowest ebb since this started. However, if you look at the graph, it is headed up. So be careful. And, I still, if I am in if I'm on the subway, I wear a mask. If I take a cab, I wear a mask. Right now.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, has there been guidance on boosters?
Boosters are coming out in the fall. They're trying to develop, or they've been developing and testing, I think, like an Omicron booster. The good news is that there doesn't seem to be a new dominant variation. Nothing is sort of taken hold. No particularly new variation is of concern. And so that's the good news. The NIH is also starting to do first clinical trials for long COVID treatments. But people are ringing, the alarm bells that our health system is just not set up in such a way that we're going to be able to deal with all the implications of long COVID. There's some great stuff in this month's prospect about how particularly hedge funds are really hurting our medical system. It just becomes clearer and clearer. We need single payer, but I who knows when that's going to sort of permeate a broader consciousness. But maybe we'll have some of those prospect people on in the coming Wednesday, Bradley, to have them on. Bradley, are you okay? Also, just an update. We had Ryan Grimm on last week, a week ago Friday. He had written a piece in the Intercept about the potential of a lab leak being the source of COVID. There were a couple of things that he said that people on Twitter have called to our attention that was inaccurate, and I just want to catch up with that. One thing that we said, I think both Emma and I reiterated in that conversation, was that there is no evidence of a lab leak. We are still 3 years out. There is no evidence of a lab leak. There is supposed circumstantial evidence, but you could develop circumstantial evidence for a lot of stuff. When we talked to Ryan Grimm, he had not seen the entire Slack exchanges between the authors of the first report on the origins of COVID that happened in like February of 2020.
March 2020, the Nature one?
Yes.
Yeah.
He had not seen the full Slack. With people who have read the full Slack, they have come to the conclusion that there was really the implications that are being made out of it were not the case. People can go and read those themselves and make their determination. I mean, frankly, but let me just correct a couple of things that he said that upon further examination is not correct. He said that every animal sold at the wet market was traced back to farms. And I found a Wall Street Journal piece by Jeremy Page, Betsy McKay, and Drew Henshaw back in 2021 of June. And it said that that's not the case, that there were a lot of these farms where the animals were killed, that there was no antibodies, that they just weren't able to trace all of them. So that is not the case. He also cited that athletes from these military games, I guess, that were taking place in China, brought back COVID to Italy in October. That is not established. That is not the case. He also said that the wet market was 1 mile from the virology lab. And in fact, it turns out to be closer to 9 miles, if my conversion from metric to miles is correct.
That's important to note.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that and correct that record. I mean, here's the bottom line again. I think for us here is the question then becomes the second order question. Should the questions of a lab leak have been censored from Facebook for however period? Maybe I think he said 2 years. I don't know if that was 2 years, but let's just stipulate that it was. There was reporting back in June of 2021 in Politico that in spring of 2020, the senior Trump officials decided to strongly imply that COVID-19 came from a Chinese lab. I mean, it was an attempt by the Trump administration to deflect from their
towards Chinese people, it's not a coincidence that anti-Asian hate crimes in this country are up. Like, the skepticism should be directed towards hawkish narratives towards China. That is why that impulse is so well established that to put that aside in examinations of the lab leak theory, I think is silly.
The cause for war, exactly.
Yeah.
And here's the point, is that the question as to whether, Facebook was correct in moderating it, or this is nefarious that they did it. It really comes down to this question. Do you think there is, and again, private entities like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, they can moderate whatever they want. And the real question is whether government, A, should suppress this, and by suppress, I mean literally suppress it, or B, should government recommend to these entities that they don't allow disinformation. It is the equivalent, and I know this is not a direct, I think we mentioned this the other day, to yelling fire in a crowded theater, just as an example. And if you believe there is no instance in which a government during a time of emergency, which and maybe people don't believe that the pandemic was a time of emergency.
Kills
maybe you didn't
people.
See the refrigerated trailers for bodies in New York City. But if you believe that it was an emergency, do you believe that the government has an interest in suppressing false information during an emergency? If that answer is yes, then the question becomes, what information constitutes false? How far should they go? It's a negotiation. There is no like formula for this. And I don't know if you were suppressed by saying like asking the question or providing supposed answers to the question, because we know now there is no evidence. There is circumstantial evidence, but to develop rumors at that time based upon a lack of evidence, I mean, people can argue whether or not that constituted misinformation. And maybe moderators could have been more circumspect as to like what constituted misinformation and what didn't. But it is, and I do think it's a question, obviously, for scientists to work on, and for public policy folks who are like associated with funding scientists. I mean, I think that is all legitimate, but the notion of it being an example of authoritarianism, or the notion of it being an example of like censorious nature of big tech, is absurd. It's just absurd. If you don't, it is censorious, in my estimation, to build sort of like third rails around the ability of a government or other entities in any way to sort of respond to the public interest. And we can argue as to what constitutes a proper response in this instance and that I think is legitimate. But to make claims about authority, and I'm not saying that Grimm did this, but there are others.
A whole lot of people on that beat do.
That we're talking about authoritarianism and being censorious. No, they're conflating two things. They're conflating people arguing as to whether it's responsible to do this stuff. And they're also basically saying there is no time when this should happen. And I personally believe that in certain circumstances, the government has an interest in at least suggesting and fighting against misinformation. There was no one who ever went to jail. There was no one who was ever fined. There was no one who was ever fired. There was never any, I mean, the only explicit threats that ever came, I think, to these places was from Trump, frankly. But there was no government agencies that were saying, if you don't do this, this is not like the Patriot Act where they were going in and talking to librarians and saying, you can't tell people that we've come and asked for the records of what people have taken out. This was a situation where we're in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, let's hope. And the government is saying, like, we want to discourage misinformation to go out there because from a public health standpoint, the only way, and I have no doubt there were mistakes were made. I also have no doubt that, like, in the context of an administration determined to deny the existence of a pandemic. I don't know if people remember, like, when Trump was like, I don't think we should let him, if we let the boat come in with the people with the COVID, we're just going to get more COVID.
He like the xenophobia I mentioned earlier is not like enough to disprove the lab leak theory, but it is a piece of context to take into account, especially given the fact that all reputable authorities on this front have said the zoonotic origin is the more likely outcome, and that there has not been, outside of just like discussions about internal deliberations at Nation magazine in March 2020, much evidence provided to the contrary that would prove the lab leak theory. Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, to me, I see this as, and I don't think Ryan's doing this, but like this general thing is like people upset that you're not letting us run on something with no evidence, but that we found useful for agitating against China with. And it's like the same anti-censorship thing is like, well, don't censor me. I just have a different opinion about climate change, something like that. And to me, it's like, I think that the government, especially like the EPA or CDC during a pandemic, they do have a role in offering guidance. They shouldn't be able to like throw Zuckerberg in prison or something like that. To me, the decision that what a platform holds should be one transparently done, but also in the more democratic in the actual workplace. Does Facebook want to hold Trump saying when the looting starts, the shooting starts? Like these are like, or do we want to like have a platform? Because I think if Twitter or Facebook employees said, hey, we don't want our platform just to be used for agitating against China in a way that doesn't have any sort of evidence, but like has some sort of patina of investigation, like then they shouldn't have to do it. But like, I just feel like this is we talk about free speech in the First Amendment. That's not really what we're talking about here.
Right. All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments about this.
Really? I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand why people give a crap about the lab leak theory. I mean, I care I care in the sense that I feel like the fact that more than half of Americans believe it, like, and there's not been evidence for it. I find that to be slightly problematic, and the racism that comes from it, or the hawkishness towards China. But what else are we really caring about here?
What's also odd to me too is how little we're hearing about actual sort of like safeguards. That, I mean,
yeah,
I don't need a lab leak theory to say that we need to safeguard this stuff.
But that's it, Sam. Like, it's because it's an anti-public health. Like the Koch brothers, like, and I'm not saying Ryan Grimm is, but all the other people on the right that are participating in this don't want that conversation to happen. They want to think like this is a freak accident that isn't going to happen again. We don't need to think about it. That's why they're participating, and that's why I have taken the position that I have.
It's anti-expertise, anti-science, that kind of thing.
Well, it's public health. Yes, government doing stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Essentially.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, folks. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you get the fun half. And you have my solemn vow that no more than at least 2 or 3 times a week will I take 25-minute phone calls from people who are convinced they know facts about stuff that they on the slightest bit of questioning don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I'll only do that 2 or 3 times a week. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Oh, and soon I'm going to have I think we're working on a special deal for, what is it? What's that thing that Benjamin does?
Jazz Daredevil?
Jazz Daredevil whiskey highball, yeah.
Yeah, he cans them all by hand. That's right.
Yep. But we'll talk more about that. Emma!
Yeah.
People are talking about what happened yesterday.
Lots of buzz.
ESPN.
Yeah.
Huge buzz.
Great episode. Arian Foster, Houston Texans all-time rushing leader, multiple in 2010 and 2012. He was the league rushing leader, one of the great running backs of the past 20 years. Joined us to talk about the massive issue with labor in the NFL right now as it relates to the position. We also talked about some of the problematic stuff in college football, among other things. His atheism, how that was pretty groundbreaking when he went and he played at Tennessee and played in the South, and how different coaches responded to him. I mean, he's just like the most thoughtful guy, and I'm really grateful that he came on. And we talked about a bunch of other different topics, including Irsay versus Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Rodgers versus Sean Payton, and more. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt.
No Left Reckoning tonight because David Griscom is returning from New York. I met him up. We went out for drinks last night, but we'll be live tomorrow night with Darn Noor talking about climate. I might do a stream of Shadows of Doubt tonight. We'll see how it looks. So
wow.
Yeah, twitch.tv/.
What is that? What is that?
It's a detective simulator where you.
Oh, you were talking about this the other night.
I'm obsessed with it.
I've heard so much about this detective simulator.
It's totally taken over my life.
Saul and I are getting closer to like being, video game.
You're gonna get him
buds.
a console?
I think eventually. I don't know.
I'll sell you my Switch. I haven't used it in months. I regret buying it. Bradley convinced me to buy
Switch
it.
though, a Switch he can walk with, right?
Yep.
You can
I ain't
take it
doing
out.
That.
Oh,
No. I have learned my lesson.
Take it everywhere.
Saul has a phone now, but it is a flip phone, and it's the size of like this bottle.
Yeah.
And it's because
It's a flip phone?
It's a flip phone. Yeah, man.
Why does it need to be that big?
Because I want the biggest, most inconvenient thing for him to have.
Okay.
So that he puts it in his bag because he can't. I don't want him to hold it on a regular basis. I don't want him to carry it in his pocket. I just want it for like when he walks home from school.
Just put a ball and
so that
chain on the other end.
He can get in touch with his buddies, and he's like calling them and texting them and stuff like that. And that's okay. Because like my experience, boys his age, it's just literally like they're not like social beings. They don't like, it's just like, what's up? Nothing. Okay. Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got Pokemon to catch.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy!
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back. Sam Seder, I'm Bigland.
So Fox and friends, join us on the trail. We'll have some fun. I'll see you out the trail.
This may be the only thing we do anymore for the fun. Just keep playing that over and over again.
Sam was coming up with his raps before the show.
Somebody asked on the IMs why I was laughing before the show, because that's all I do now. It's like just come up with raps.
Just freestyling then.
Here's the thing. For so long, I would inhibit my desire to freestyle rap because I thought you had to have rhymes with different words.
Yeah, no.
And then Vivek, sounds like
Open up a new universe.
He opened my eyes. Like the...
That you don't have to have talent or skill to be a rapper.
Is
or
it the
express
shields? It just fell from my eyes.
Yeah.
The scales.
The scales.
Fell from my
Yeah.
eyes. When I realized, like, oh, you can rhyme the same word.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm Ramaswamy, word to your mommy. They
Life
call
hack.
They call us Nazis, but we're not.
See?
Let's play that clip. Here is from, this is on
DJ Vivek.
CNN's El Reeve is at the Turning Points USA conference earlier this month and was looking into Vivek's candidacy. And here is she interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy about his views on wokeness and how, racism is sort of like not really. Let's just play the clip.
Yeah.
As a negative thing.
As a symptom of a deeper cancer.
Okay, well, a symptom of cancer is not a positive thing.
No, but it's a
I don't
precision
want
about how I want to talk about it. It's a symptom.
My objection is not that there's not annoying people on Twitter. Like, of course there are.
Yeah, let's put that to one side.
But there are problems of racism in this country, and I have concerns that what you're telling the audience is like, actually, no, there isn't. There's no more problems. There's nothing that needs to be addressed. There are no more disparities. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And you can even be angry that someone asked you to worry about that.
I think the right way to deal with what I view as the last final burning embers of racism is to let that quietly burn out rather than trying to put that fire out by accidentally throwing kerosene on it.
All right, pause it for 1 second. I just like this is important to sort of like his whole thing is it's a symptom. It's just the idea that racism hasn't been a part of this country since its inception, and that there's only now brief embers of racism in the country, and like it's both sort of like catastrophizing it and diminishing it at the same time. The fact is that it is a part of our society. It exists. And
it's not Godzilla raging through a town and then like it's slowly dying away, right? It's just an omnipresent force.
And I think that it is very possible to argue that it is not as intense as it was in the past. And obviously, like, you're not allowed to enslave people anymore. But it's really nuts how much he is sort of has to bury his head in the sand about this. And then what they do is they just go play clips from his booth, I guess, at Turning Points just a month earlier.
So some of the embers.
Mm-hmm.
Always go out quietly, which was evident.
Go back.
Okay.
And, we should also say.
Bit of the dark
wait,
side
stop
here.
it. Pause it. The idea that also that it's going to go out on its own. That if you bring it up and point it out, what you're doing is you're inflaming it. In other words, he's basically saying racism is a function of people being upset about racism.
Yeah.
He who should not be named.
I'd say maybe the kerosene is like people like Steven Crowder, Tim Pool, the people that Vivek shows he goes on.
Oh, easy, great way to deflect from yourself.
Here,
Matt.
well, I mean, those guys show like, oh, here's like some inner city crime some black teenagers did. Like that's how they start their show, their opening segment. Like that's the kerosene trying to get those embers back up. But
Last final burning embers of racism is to let that quietly burn out rather than trying to put that fire out by accidentally throwing kerosene on it.
But those embers don't always go out quietly, which was evident even at this conference.
We have a little bit of the dark side here. We have a Star of David crossed out that says soon. Now that's a 4chan joke saying there'll be another Holocaust. We also have 1488. That is also a Nazi joke. So we got 2 Nazi jokes here. Everything else, though, pretty positive.
When CNN pointed out these notes, a Turning Point spokesman took them down. You're not responsible for the people who put that up, but it was just a very stark reminder that that kind of bigotry still exists, and it is in a lot of places that you wouldn't expect.
I can't speak to that particular instance. I'll tell you my experience in this country. Have I experienced racism? Yes, I have. But I reject the myth that hardship is the same thing as victimhood.
That is why we will end affirmative action in every sphere.
No one says hardship.
I mean, what if the hardship is like just based on the color of your skin? We can predict how much worse COVID impacted you financially. Like,
well, he's basically blaming.
Based upon the color of your skin, we can also predict percentage-wise what the average wealth is in your neighborhood, what your opportunity to get a job is. I mean, your opportunity to get a loan is. I mean, there's so much.
Maybe you're not victim in your mind, but you are impoverished, relatively speaking.
But that's how he views non-white people who speak out about racism. It seems like you are presenting yourself as a victim. You could be like me, Vivek, the MC, where I'm also a VC, right? That was his past profession as a venture capitalist. Can we double check that? Either way, that is essentially what he's trying to say, is personalizing people's the general trends of racism to make it about their own fault. He was good enough to rise above it and make a ton of money.
I wonder if when he was faced with racism, if he said, I'm not going to say anything about it. Don't worry. It's cool. Lefty band teacher says, classic Boy Scout technique of just letting the embers go out by themselves. Surely the fire won't reignite itself.
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. It's fine.
It's fine.
And accidentally pouring gasoline on it? That's what he said? I mean, it seems bizarre. It's a big accident
I
to
want
do.
to pour some water on that.
Yeah, right.
Nah, it's fine. Just let it go. Let's go.
Salted
let's go
like
home.
It's just like camping. You start the fire, go to sleep, and hope for the best.
It's just
We all
embers.
know
Yeah,
this.
stop obsessing over those embers.
Yeah, right.
Wokes. Wokey the bear.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
so he's a hedge fund guy. Yeah.
Going to the IM's Kowalski from Nebraska. Emma, why is it when someone says "Have a nice day," it's taken as a compliment, but whenever I tell someone to enjoy the next 24 hours, they always seem to get apprehensive? To make a long story short, they won't let me back in the Applebee's. We used to be a real country. Left is best.
Oh, thanks, Kowalski.
Grand Island Applebee's.
Eric.
I also don't think it's a compliment to say "Have a nice day."
Well, it's a nice platitude.
Yeah.
What the hell does Eric from Michigan? What the hell does the exception that proves the rule even mean?
It means I've been contradicted and I don't want to have to, make it mesh.
I mean, that's basically it. Your rule has to be, yeah. Sam's Tights Pants. It's pretty funny that Senator Tommy Tube Socks single-handedly cost Alabama the Space Command headquarters. Meanwhile, Senator Katie Britt suffered facial nerve swelling from post-viral infection, bodily effects, and is out for a few weeks. Maybe it's long COVID. Maybe it's having a mental breakdown from your state's fellow senator being terrible at his job. I forgot the poll, but people were asked whether a picture of RFK Jr. was RFK Jr. or the actual RFK himself. Literally 40% of people thought it was the father, RFK. This is pure name recognition. People don't follow this stuff closely yet. We are 15 months out, for Pete's sake. Well, we're not 15 months out from the primary. What is the first one? Is it going to be Iowa? I don't know if it's been resolved, but we're closer to like 5 or 6 months out to the first primary.
I mean, the first Republican debate's on the 23rd.
Yeah.
So that's in less than a month.
David Griscom and I recently covered Karl Marx's 18th premiere of Louis Napoleon, and Louis Napoleon, Napoleon's nephew, won a lot of peasant votes because they thought he was Napoleon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, RFK Jr. looks kind of like his dad, right?
Yeah.
A little more
Except famously,
bigger,
assassinated. So
yeah.
I don't know if you if you never recognize the name, but not
what
that he was
percentage of people do you think?
Allegedly assassinated.
What percentage of people do you think are aware that RFK Sr. is even dead?
But like that's the thing is like if the name Kennedy means enough for you to like be positive, you would know
that. But okay, my joke was wrong because it's JFK Jr. who they think is still alive, right? And in QAnon.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
WTF Cody, happy Newsday Tuesday. Hope everyone has a great day. Nothing non-birthing person. Oh, we already got that. Turbo Dog. My name is Vivek, and I'm here to say I'm rapping a libertarian way. 1, 2. Oh, we did that. That's good. Deep state asset. My first VA disability payment came through today. Can I get a shofar? And congrats to you for now being government funded. Left is best. Oh, thank you. Prairie Fire Kowalski. Did you see Universal Studios broke LA City ordinance to trim trees to prevent shade to the protesters on an upper 90-degree day? What a-hole.
I think there's probably some reporting on that. I was waiting to see, but the city apparently is like, yeah, we didn't give them clearance to trim those trees. And I mean, as someone who walks to work and follows trim tree line routes, even, so it takes longer. Like that is important.
Well, I mean, you can also track, I learned this from you, certain neighborhoods and urban areas, higher density of trees is more
20-degree
wealthier,
difference. 20-degree difference
and wealthier areas.
Yes.
Yep.
I saw that there was a story just the other day that the color of your skin also could literally change the temperature in your neighborhood.
The areas that I walk through because they are tree covered are also the bougiest parts of Brooklyn.
Of course. Charlie Scher, if they're going after Hunter for the illusion of influence, are they going to investigate Jared Kushner and Ivanka? No, come on. Of course not.
They're hard workers.
I want to preface by saying Biden will get my vote if it's him versus any Republican because I'm a trans woman and the other side wants me dead. Biden has exceeded my expectations because I expected nothing and he has done some things. All that said, I hate the man's impulse to bipartisanship who want people to screw him or the left over. I dislike the stuff like crushing the rail strike or his BS with the $2,000 payments that got dropped to $1,400, although it was at least something. And I don't feel he's gone Dark Brandon against the rights culture war nonsense nearly as hard as he should. Again, he's getting my vote because purely as the anti-fascist vote, but it does often feel like he's taking votes like mine for granted because I don't really have a choice between him or the death. On the bright side, at least this will be his last term if he wins. Left is best. I mean, I
very similar sentiments to mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
they are taking it for granted because
and they are.
And
the thing is that you know the question is like, how do you not get them to take your vote for granted? And the answer is really, you don't. Like there is that is not the idea.
You can't do it individually. You have to do it collectively. You have to be as a part of like either a movement or a union or something like that.
You need to have actual like real competition, and that would be like a viable primary contender.
Right. Yeah. Even like the unions that are saying we're going to wait to endorse Biden, which I like and respect because it gives them like another news cycle to do stuff. Like they're not really going to. And Biden's still going to do anti-union stuff. Yeah. It's still going to be. It's going to be better than Trump, obviously, but.
Colleen from Connecticut. Sam, that special Rumble number really paid off yesterday. Edward Said fan club. Have you all seen the videos of a couple who was having a wedding at Hilton? Their wedding was interrupted by hotel workers on strike, and the couple was angry at striking workers. Wonder what your opinion is on it. I have not seen it.
Yeah, they shouldn't cancel the wedding.
Don't be a scab.
That's what it means to be a mighty man of valor.
There you go.
Yes, that's what it means.
New York City driver. SAG-AFTRA are the ones who knock.
I wanted to say I am the one who strikes, but I didn't have a chance. It's a Breaking Bad reference.
The other difference, too, I should say, is that SAG and AFTRA used to be separate unions. I don't know if that makes their ability to strike stronger. I don't know about that, but just one adding of the sort of like the changes in dynamics. Tomo Flink, happy Newsday Tuesday, folks. Here in Britain, man of the people Nigel Farage is whining about having his account closed by a bank that specializes in wealthy clients. Very anti-establishment, if I do say so myself. Also in happier news, I got a mental health referral for my OCD yesterday. The next few weeks will be testing, but at least it's a step in the right direction. Great.
Awesome stuff.
Vatoff, Malcolm in the Middle, Season 5, Episode 2, when Hal, Bryan Cranston, organizes the Lukey Aid night shift employees to overtake Craig, the manager. Union through and through always. Sam, you should watch the series with Saul. He'll like it. That is a good idea.
Breaking Bad?
Malcolm, no.
Oh, I was going to say, you got a little bit older.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, Malcolm in the Middle is, you should watch that with Saul. I think it's like one of those sitcoms that actually has good messages. And it's about class, right? Like they're
I never saw it, but
their
I know
financial struggles are like very central to the plot, which is super rare. It's like Friends, for example, you know, they're living in some mansion like in the West Village apartment and somehow getting by.
And Fred Savage, right? Was that the kid's name?
No, Frankie Muniz.
You're thinking of Happy Days or Wonder Years.
Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Okay. St. James, hey, I'm our crew. Will you be playing Vivek's rap without your audio filter that makes music sound bad, like Tim Pool's music? Disturbing. Left is best. Dan from Columbus. Cranston is a goddamn national treasure. Didn't the Trump tax cuts start sunsetting in 2020? So some people may be paying more taxes now than 5 years ago. I don't know how that distribution works out. I believe they start sunsetting actually in 2025. Talking about the lab leak conjecture is annoying to me because all the people that first jumped onto it were also saying this COVID was a bioweapon, but it also is just the cold or the flu and refused to mask. Switch is portable, but some of us are docked-only gamers. Just don't let Saul figure out he can take it out of the dock. You don't understand. Like, for kids who grow up with this stuff, there is no...
It's easy.
Easy to figure this stuff out.
But that console probably has the most age-appropriate games of all of them.
Switch?
Yeah.
There's nothing that Saul does that's age-appropriate.
Yeah, I mean...
there's nothing...
Like, Gears of War Xbox.
He doesn't... he has no compunction about violence, but if he sees even the slightest kiss, he has to avert his eyes. My dad was an animator, and when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, okay, boomer, amongst his older coworkers, the 1941 Disney strike and Walt Disney's decades-long vendetta against the leaders was still a major topic of discussion. Disney has always been the enemy of the workers. Yep. Listener from Compton. I think Sarah Silverman's Instagram videos were great about how the deals made allowing some independent shoots to continue goes against the solidarity of the work stoppage. Yeah, I have questions about that. I've read that the only thing I can tell you that they let the independent shoots go forward under the proposed contract that SAG-AFTRA wants from the producers. The theory from the union, and I'm not sure where I fall on this, but I'm just relating what the information that I am aware of. The theory from the union is we are showing that in signing these contracts, there are production companies and studios that are not going to go broke. They're capable of paying these rates, and so putting lie to the notion that we are going to bankrupt the business. The counter argument to that is you're undermining solidarity when you're allowing some people to work and others not to, just by luck of the draw, obviously, that they get cast in one of these by one of these studios that's willing to do this stuff. I honestly don't know where I fall on that. The union obviously thinks it's in their best interests, but I think it would be less so in the event that creates disunity amongst the union workers. So I'm not sure. I need to look more into it, but I've seen her videos on that.
Back to that IMer's comment on Disney. This is from George Orwell in the 40s. It would probably not be beyond human ingenuity to write books or write books by machinery, but a sort of mechanizing process can already be seen at work in the film and radio, in publicity and propaganda, and in the lower reaches of journalism. The Disney films, for instance, are produced by what is essentially a factory process, the work being done partly mechanically and partly by teams of artists who have to subordinate their individual style. AI, Orwell knew.
Phones are open, 646-257-3920. Folks, if you've called before, take a pause. Give yourself 3 minutes. Let a chance for folks who have never been on.
Okay.
Want to try and do
new calls?
New calls, if possible. That never works.
Yep.
But Sam's full-sleeved shirts. Loved your video where you exposed Alito's nonsensical arguments, not well enough voices, and the left come down hard on the Supreme Court judges individually like you do. On that note, whatever happened to AOC promising to bring impeachment notice against Clarence Thomas? Well, I don't know that a Democrat could bring a bill to the floor now.
No.
But I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats take the House in 2024 if she does it then. Calling from a 708 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey there, everybody. This is Sam Seder. Started selling pot because I had a good seed year. If I were to build a deck, I'd make it out of cedar. Every year in spring, I celebrate the cedar. I'm the host of the award-winning Majority Report, where we bring our guests an interview and then report on various leftist topics, policies, and agendas, and some grade A losers, of which I'll talk 2 picks, even though there are so many in the conservative cesspool. I'm talking about Shapiro and the Tim Pool. It's time for me to move on, but I hope now you see, dear, no one could be messing with Mr. Sandal Cedar.
Bravo.
Creativity in this audience.
I like
great.
that A rhyme style.
Good job. Clearly, clearly a literature student.
Actually, a chemist, but sorry. This is Stephen from San Francisco.
Stephen from San Francisco.
So I just wanted to give that call and maybe see if you could determine whether or not I had a good shot at running for the Republican nomination.
I mean, you sound like you're capable. I've got a bug in here. It's driving me crazy. All right. Appreciate the call. That was great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. What's the best?
That was good.
Really good.
There's a bug?
There's like a giant fruit fly flying around here.
Yeah,
we've
had
I don't know. It's a
few of
no-seam or
them.
one of those like little gnats.
I gotta put some sugar.
Drive me
water out.
crazy. Driving me crazy. Calling from a 919 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Malika. I'm calling from Raleigh, North Carolina. And I basically want to talk, this is my first time calling. I am currently a trans teenager. I'm 19. And I wanted to talk, the impetus is that I heard some people, I'll just use initials AK and BB, talking about the same thing you heard in 2016, that the left was obsessed with quote unquote boutique issues like pronouns and bathrooms, and that's why Hillary lost. But we're seeing the same kind of talking points come where they're saying, why aren't we talking about economic concerns and material concerns as juxtaposed to cultural issues like trans issues and abortion, etc. And basically, I wanted to say that as a trans teenager, one, we're not really being listened to every coverage of trans people that goes to like on mainstream media, etc., the only coverage that actually features the voices of trans kids, like the one thing that comes to mind is actually the Fox News story where they covered that family from California, I believe. And every time you see CNN talk about Dylan Mulvaney and all of these topics, and there's not a single trans person ever on any of these panels. And so the actual concerns of trans people, I'm concerned. We have an election coming up in 2024 where we have a fire and brimstone preacher, Mark Robinson, and I'm concerned that my access to healthcare will be banned because they're proposing like under 21 or something.
Of course.
That healthcare will be.
That's happening in other states for adults. They're trying to ban. I forget exactly which state it is. Bradley, maybe you could look that up. But like, which was it? Florida that restricted gender affirming care for adults too?
It was Florida. It was Florida that like said that nurse practitioners could not issue care. And so since when is healthcare a boutique issue, first of all? And also like the response from like the Democrats and mainstream media has been like, oh, well, like just let trans kids deal with it in accordance with their parents. And at least from my experience, trans kids want a lot of this care regardless of whether they have an accepting home, because I am also Black, and so my home hasn't always been the most accepting for trans healthcare. I had to go back into the closet, and there are people currently trying to out trans students. And so all of these things have such direct impact on like my life. And I feel like there is no space anywhere for any trans kid who has actually gone through the experience of living in children's healthcare to actually talk about the issues facing us in a way that talks about homelessness. 40% of the homeless population is LGBTQ, and talking about healthcare and talking about job discrimination. Like, yeah, we have Bostock, but how tenuous is that when Lori Smith can discriminate on a hypothetical website that she never intends on creating?
Yeah. I mean, just the nature of when you say boutique issue, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I mean, because an issue is, well, I mean, just to address it more generally, if an issue is about a minority group's healthcare, you could call that boutique. I mean, I would say that's fairly right-wing framing, but what it really is it's an issue set for a minority. And like, we said this before, but to cave to what the majority wants or what the majority is comfortable with as it relates to trans healthcare, to put those issues aside, is to essentially cave to a majoritarian impulse, which puts issues that are specific to a minority group to the side as boutique and says, well, we're not going to address that really in general. But that's the very nature of an issue that's about minorities, which trans people are a minority in this country.
I would reframe it and turn it back on those people, though, because the actual like cultural BS is that people shouldn't get distracted on is things like birthing person, and the material things that people should keep their eye on includes abortion care and includes trans care, because those are just a subset of health care. And what are we after? Universal health care. And you don't have universal. And so the idea that people can't be trusted generally with universal health care, the state to provide them health care, is the same idea, just more particular when you say women can't be trusted to get abortion services, or trans people can't be trusted to pursue trans health care. So it is not like, I agree that you need to focus on material things. The people that are doing that and focusing on bullshit are the ones not following their own advice.
And I, you know, the argument too that and I've heard this same argument, Moika, that that in some way that it is inhibiting the ability of Democrats to achieve reforms that would provide material benefit for people, to be sidetracked by this. There is absolutely no support. It's the exact same argument, frankly, that we heard from, it was Hillary Clinton was one of the major espousers of this in 2004, that we should back off abortion rights because it is inhibiting the ability of Democrats to attract people, and it is and we should say abortion rights were considered more secure than the rights of trans people at this time. So it was more, it's even less tenuous. And what it did is it softened up the ground for what we ended up seeing with the Supreme Court. It also did not attract any voters whatsoever. And we now know that when you have an issue where the American public is, is supportive, and even if the American public is not supportive of every single sort of like element of trans rights, the fact is the American public does not think this is an issue. And if the Democrats, if the argument that we hear from different quarters on the left of center is that fighting and defending trans people's rights is inhibiting Democratic getting elected, I would argue that, in fact, on the contrary, the more Republicans attack trans people, the more this is a winning issue for Democrats, at least in the context of national elections. I mean, in deep red states, and North Carolina, is not one, but there is certainly, huge sort of red elements there. We're going to see trans rights trampled and attacked, and trans people, both eliminationist rhetoric and, actions. But in terms of like what the federal government can do down the road and in changing people's minds about this, pressing the point, I think is helpful for Democrats, on a national level.
To Sam's point, too, there has not been any empirical evidence that shows that advocating for trans rights hurts Democrats electorally. In fact, it's been the opposite. That's what the 2022 midterm show. So if you're still making that claim without that empirical evidence, that kind of just lends credence to accusations that it's really just you that has the problem with trans people, not generally what your read is on the population. And so it's not a boutique issue to focus on trans healthcare, because gender affirming care is healthcare in and of itself. And it's a false notion that you can separate the care and the emancipation of minority groups from other, material, class-based political issues. If we could live in that reality and you can segment it like that, maybe you'd have an argument. But like, we live in reality as opposed to something that's more like working backwards from your discomfort with trans people and then making a political argument based on that.
All that said, Moika, none of this, the broader political implications don't necessarily help your situation. And, I'm sorry that you're dealing with this sort of the stress about, whether you're going to be able to get health care over the course of the next couple of years. And hang in there. I can't imagine that it's been an easy road for you.
Yeah, thank you. And I am fortunate enough to where I have had at least one supporting parent who has given me the ability to transition, and like all of my friends at school, and they were really losing us because like nobody has an issue with me like using the women's bathroom, and nobody has ever made this apparent to me. Like no professors, no teachers, no like random people. Like the only time I've ever gotten somebody to say something is when I've actually used the men's restroom one time. And so it's really just disconnected. It strikes me as disconnected that I'm supposed to distrust my entire lived experience as a girl to like appease the narrative that like, there are like a lot of concerned parents that have issues over this when I don't see any evidence of that anywhere.
That's
and it's
code.
entirely
That's code color. I'm sure you know this, but I mean, that's when people say like, "Oh, you're you're grooming the kids against the parents' wishes." What that is code for is you aren't telling the probably bigot parents that their kid is going by they them now instead of he him. Like that. That's the parents element to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind me asking, were you able to access care easily as a teenager?
So it wasn't easy as a teenager. In fact, there was like a wait list of like at least a good half a year just to like get a consultation for like the potentials of care. That was a half a year. And then you had to go through, I'd already been talking with a therapist for upwards of 3 years. And so I had to get an official letter from my therapist, multiple of them, a psychiatrist. And it was all a lot of like annoying procedural hurdles that I had to navigate at like 17. So like that's already an issue. And then additionally, once I actually got there, they were just they applied the affirmative care model because what I've gone through all of this and you're gonna tell me that I am not trans? Like that seems absurd. Like the amounts that I've gone through to just get access to a consultation is now being used to say that like everybody is transitioning, when I have friends who grew up and they quote unquote desisted and stopped identifying as trans and started living as their gender assigned at birth, and they never had any issues with trans people getting transition healthcare. And so desistance is in fact proof that the system, the affirmative care model, is working, that people who aren't really trans aren't getting trans healthcare. But in fact, a lot of people that are trans are being restricted from getting this healthcare, and that is the harm that is being caused.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I am sure there are, undoubtedly there are cases where people have regret, but that is the case with everything, frankly. Like any type of like public health or personal health decisions, it is always a cost benefit analysis. There's no procedure that is ever 100% safe. And there is, and you could apply that to, individuals as well, insofar as like, the cost associated with making it impossible, for, trans youth to get, care is, undoubtedly greater than the opposite situation. I mean, it's just really that simple. Really,
yeah,
go ahead.
Last thing is just that I want to take the moment to say that, like, yes, like the whole trans healthcare saved my life. It's not a fiction. Like, trans healthcare very materially has benefited me and everybody I know to have received healthcare. Like, and I probably know more trans people as a trans person than everyone who has talked about this issue. Like, a lot of people are forced to talk about this issue and really they have no connection to it.
Right.
And trans healthcare is unequivocally like one of the best things that could have happened to me, and I've never been happier with my life living as a trans girl than when I was living in a closet. And in fact, I have more regret about the time I was convinced that being trans was going to be too much. There was a time where I thought that being trans wasn't worth it, and those are the times that I have regretted not living in my truth sooner. And so to anybody else out there, I just want you to know that it is always worth it to live as your trans self if you happen to be trans, or live as whoever you are. And the fact that that message is so seemingly polarizing in online spaces, not really in real life, but in online spaces, it's just mind-boggling to me.
Well, I appreciate your calling in, and I'm glad that you're doing well, at least in the context of decisions you've made and being able to live your life in a way that makes you happy. And hang in there. It may get rougher in the short term, but I think ultimately we're going to get back to a place where the type of hate and obstacles that are being put in the way of particularly trans youth, but trans people broadly, I think is going to go away. So, but hang in there. Really admire your perseverance and your attitude towards this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing the great.
All right, bye-bye. Impressive, to have to sort of on top of just the difficulty in being a teenager, to have to navigate this stuff. Also, apologies for my camera freezing. I had my device and I updated my computer, and now it's gone. So I got to reinstall that.
Yeah. Oh, right.
This is interesting and depressing. Here is last week, presidential candidate RFK Jr. And this is particularly with everything that's going on in Israel right now. And, the attack on what little of democracy remained in Israel. And maybe it's not even maybe you can't have, maybe that's not even the right way of framing it. The idea that the fascism and authoritarianism and oppression that has been in practice for decades, aimed at the Palestinian people, is now being sort of shifted over to essentially Israelis who do not subscribe to the nationalistic and fundamentalist visions of the government in power in Israel right now. And we've done multiple interviews over the past couple of weeks and months on this. To see RFK Jr. Say this stuff with not only a right-wing rabbi, Shmuley, also this is a guy who was, Michael Jackson's advisor, and there's no reason why Michael Jackson can't have advisors and whatnot.
He's like a publicity rabbi.
But he is a publicity rabbi. I bumped into this guy, I can't remember when, during Air America days. And the guy is, just a right-winger.
Yeah.
And to hear Kennedy, and there's reports out. Judd Legum over at Popular Information, the first broke this story, and I guess Politico has picked it up. Half of RFK's PAC money comes from a donor who is a Trump supporter. The other half has come from a guy who has given money to both Republicans and Democrats. But I don't know if you would consider RFK Jr. as just a chaos agent in the Democratic Party. I don't think it's going to be terribly effective, frankly. I contend he is running to be Donald Trump's running mate, frankly. And every day there's more and more evidence of this. There is in no way can you say that RFK Jr. is running to the left of the Democratic Party in just about anything, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
And I'm just talking the mainstream Democrat. I'm talking Tim Kaine.
Yeah.
For God's sakes. But here is RFK at the World Values Network, which I don't know what the World Values Network is, but what
some organization in New York City. He was doing a campaign, a candidate forum.
Yeah, but if Shmuley Botek is the moderator, if you will, I mean, I have some questions about the World Values Network. But go ahead.
Israel is unique in the Mideast for saying we're only going to attack military targets. And they're very, very disciplined about doing so.
Pause it.
Lie.
All right. Israel called them precision strikes, but civilian homes were hit too, reports the New York Times on May 31st, 2023. Forbes on, let's see, May 26, 2021. Israel's bombardment of Gaza. You can scroll down and see what their practice is. Strikes targeting large high-rise building. They will attack where Hamas leaders live. And Hamas leaders live with their neighbors. Remember, Hamas is essentially an open-air prison. There's no military bases where they're all in their barracks.
Open-air prison,
Was it
or West
Reuters?
Bank, yeah.
I mean,
previous bombing that got hit.
Yes.
Would you say if some government was to bomb where the Secretary of Defense in this country lives, which is not on a military base, or even the generals, was to strike that house with the family in there, would we say that we're not attacking civilians? That's from Forbes. And then Haaretz, just like, I don't know, in March, talking about Hawara, the program there. They don't have to attack civilian neighborhoods, because what they do is they bring the military in and allow the settlers to attack these neighborhoods. This is just, Amnesty International. I mean, you could just go on and on. Incidentally, that first one's from the New York Times. The hippies over at the New York Times. I mean, this is just a blatant lie. It's just a blatant lie. Continue.
Israel is unique in the Mideast for saying we're only going to attack military targets. And they're
to be fair, all he did say was that they say we're only going to attack military. That may be true. They say it. Go.
Israel is unique in the Mideast for saying we're only going to attack military targets. And they're very, very disciplined about doing so. Palestine, the Palestinian Authority, in contrast, follows a long tradition of deliberately targeting civilians. So anybody, and not only that, but they have a pay-to-slay policy. That is the official policy of the Palestinian Authority. If you kill a Jew, not a member of the IDF, if you kill any Jew, you are going to get awarded with pay for life. And if you go to jail or you're killed, your family will get payments for life. And the official policy of Hamas is the genocide of all the Jews.
Okay, that's also not true. There is that's not a pay to slay. I think you get it for any type of attack. But I got news for you. The IDF, they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
They get paid. They get paid to occupy. They get paid when they kill Palestinians. They get paid when they basically allow settlers to come in and steal land and destroy homes. They get paid when they bulldoze homes. They get paid for occupying and for maintaining an open-air prison with a 50% unemployment rate, with rampant malnutrition. They get paid.
Mm-hmm.
They get paid too.
You kill a journalist, you can get paid and not investigated.
Shireen Abu Akleh, the dozens of children killed just this year, Palestinian children. I mean, that's just lying. That's just lying.
It's really, I just find it.
Does he go at the squad in this clip too, or was that later? He's like, yeah, unlike some in the progressive part of the Democrats, I'm not going to criticize Israel.
Oh, but he's running to the left of Biden.
But that's the thing is, that I don't know. Does he claim he is? Do other people claim he
I think
is?
the only place people will make that claim is the same way the Republicans make it, which is that we support Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Or in the same way that Jimmy Dore says that Trump is less fascist than Joe Biden. The words mean nothing if they're used as an attack against the left or Democrats. That's pretty gross.
Yeah, it's just it's a really. I mean, look, I understand that there is cowardice amongst Democratic politicians when it comes to Israel. I understand also there are some that are just reactionary on this issue. This is even beyond that. It really is. It's just really unbelievable. It's really disappointing. And we spoke to Marone Rappaport yesterday. He sees the opportunity for this special relationship with Israel dying because and to say this stuff with what's going on in Israel, like there is no cover. There is no cover for the story of Israel being this special democratic country anymore. It's just, I'm sorry. It's just absurd. You've got the former head of the Mossad. The former head of the Mossad coming out and saying apartheid, saying we have a country, we have a government full of racists and ultra-nationalists and fundamentalists. It's just, it's stunning. On another note, this is just more like an interesting phenomenon. Outside of the of this event where RFK Jr. was extolling Israeli democracy and extolling how measured their military is. There's a group called Neturai Karta, and I've mentioned this before, but it's really interesting. And you could actually find this within Israel in a section of Jerusalem called Mea Shearim. There are ultra-Orthodox Jews who believe that the state of Israel should not exist, that Jews should not return to Jerusalem until the Messiah arrives. To be clear, Jews don't believe that the Messiah has come yet, so it's not a return. It would be a first time.
Okay.
Put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, right. As opposed to, Jesus return. The Christian Zionists want Jesus to come back the second time, and then for all the Jews in Israel most of them.
Christians believe that when Jesus showed up, he was the Messiah, and that prophecy was fulfilled. That's why the Jewish Bible is considered the Old Testament, and it got a refresh with the Messiah coming. Jews are still waiting for the other Messiah. And these Jews do not believe that Israel should exist without that. But what I find interesting here is that they're not arguing from a religious standpoint when they make this argument. Here, listen to this.
No audio?
Go forward to where he's speaking. Maybe the audio.
Give me 1 second. I'll get the clip.
All right. Well, here is it is interesting because their complaint is religious, but they have also seemingly absorbed, sort of some of the and I'm not saying that they're being disingenuous. I mean,
what's the history
humanist
of this
perspective?
This sort of always exists alongside Israel, or is it developed?
I know that when I was in Israel in 1980, in Jerusalem, you could see graffiti in this area, Mea Shearim, that would say Zionism and Judaism are diametrically opposed. I don't think they say that Jews can't be there, but they're just saying that like there cannot be a Jewish state before the Messiah shows up on religious terms. Here we go.
It seemed like the media accused this politician of being anti-Semitic, and now he's trying to prove that he's not anti-Semitic by saying how great Israel is. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me because, like I said, this is the general perception that's given very successfully done by the Zionists as a ploy to gaining support and to stifle any opposition to the state of Israel is by equating and convoluting and the two concepts of Judaism and Zionism, even though it's really both contradictory, and it's just so blatantly wrong. Judaism is to serve God, to be peaceful, to be loving, to do kindness. Zionism is a truly selfish political movement of occupying another people. So wrong, so vicious, so anti what Judaism is all about, and it's totally humiliating to us as practicing Jews to see and hear what is being done in our name.
Supporting Israel is not support for Jews! Supporting Israel is not support for Jews! Supporting Israel is not support for Jews!
AIPAC, for instance, and the other Zionist organizations makes it a point of attempting to have every single faction in the United States or around the world, any political group, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents, it really doesn't matter. They want to actually equate and convolute the issue of Judaism and the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and try to create the mirage, a concept that if you're opposing the state of Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And in truth, Israel and Zionism, what they're doing is the greatest exacerbator of anti-Semitism around the world.
Now, I don't, fully subscribe to much of what this guy says.
Yeah.
Like my issue with Israel is not founded in a some type of religious precept of as to why whether Israel can exist based upon God's law. I do think, and I'm not convinced that the existence of Israel is needed to exacerbate anti-Semitism. I think probably the existence of Israel is an attempt to address anti-Semitism that had been around for several thousand years and led to a mass genocide. But nevertheless, the idea that that AIPAC, in particular in this country, has equated criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism is true, and it is really detrimental, I think, to Jews writ large, but also incredibly detrimental to Palestinians. And I do think, though, and one of the interesting things about Meron Rappaport, what he was saying is that it had never really occurred to me that the money, it's one thing to condition the military support and the aid that we give Israel, but that the president has the ability to unilaterally pull back on the cover that we give Israel in international organizations. And in many respects, that is far more important. I mean, I've seen quotes, Israel might be able to get money from other sources, might be able to get weapons from other sources, might be able to develop it themselves, whatnot. But the veto power in the Security Council, the protection in these other international tribunals and whatnot, that to me seems to be a very, very potentially productive, point.
Yeah,
Right.
this is from 2001, but a history of the U.S. blocking UN resolutions against Israel over the past 5 decades is from Al Jazeera. The United States has vetoed at least 53 UN Security Council resolutions critical of Israel.
There you go. All right. Let's go to the phones. Emma's going to jump off for the day. We're going to wrap up shortly. Yeah, we're going to wrap up shortly.
Okay.
So just jump off and deal with what you got to deal with.
Okay, sorry.
No worries. Let's go. One last phone call, ladies and gentlemen. It is coming from which do you prefer, a 4 or a 7? 7? Okay. Coming from a 763 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? We had a lot of people on for 40 minutes, essentially. So I had to just do a random. Yeah. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, it is you.
Hi, this is Soren calling from Minneapolis.
Soren from Minneapolis. What's on your mind?
Hi, I just, and forgive me if somebody's called in about this already, but I'm not able to catch all your fun halves. But I'm calling about the Natalie Ryan situation in FPO, professional disc golf.
Unfamiliar with this.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We actually got a call about this on ESPN on the sports show. But please tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so Natalie Ryan, to my knowledge, is the only female player in the FPO, or sorry, the only trans player in the FPO to actually have any notoriety and to be on the level where she's considered a professional disc golfer. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is FTO?
It's the professional or the female division of professional disc golf. The MPO would be the male division.
Professional disc golf, anything. But okay. I learned. All right.
Yeah, so it's kind of grown over the course of COVID. Disc golf became kind of popular, and it's kind of fallen off since the PDGA, the organization that runs the whole thing, kind of thought that the explosion in popularity would keep going. So they kind of, I don't know the phrase,
overextended
but they put
themselves.
Too many eggs. Exactly, yeah. But kind of aside from that, it came out recently, or I saw a post recently that they knew that if they pushed back against Natalie Ryan being able to perform in these events, that she would sue them essentially. And they went ahead and pushed back anyway. And then they made this whole scene about it essentially. I mean, mostly online and, for people like me who follow it, saying that they were going to cancel events like I said, I'm from Minneapolis. We have a state law that says, I don't know the specifics of it, but basically a female trans athlete is allowed to perform in these events. So when we had a recent event here, Natalie Ryan was able to compete in it. And, that apparently doesn't sit well with the PDGA. So they've threatened to not hold these events in, states like mine that would allow for this.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just sort of like a publicity stunt by the league. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, yes and no. I think and I mean, this is my personal speculation, but there are reasons that I believe this that I'll not go into. I think they're just very ideologically aligned with kind of right wingers, and I mean, not to throw shade at any religious people, but Christian kind of fundamentalist type things. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I won't go too far into that, but
yeah, I mean, it seems ridiculous to me. You're talking about frisbee, and you're talking about and you're talking about frisbees, and you're talking about frisbee golf.
Yeah,
I don't even know why you have different leagues, frankly, for frisbee golf.
Well, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, the other side of what I wanted to talk about. This event we had in Minnesota recently, Natalie Ryan did all right. the men's division and the female division, there's no way that even like the best female player in the world, Kristen Tatar, and I'm sorry, when I'm saying female, I'm encompassing all cis women and trans women.
Right.
I want to make that clear. There's no way that any of the FPO could compete with MPO. But that said, like, Natalie Ryan didn't even, like, it's not like she's like crushing the league, and we're talking about one person. I just kind of fail to see what the problem is, why they need to make such a big deal out of it when, you know, even when this trans athlete competes, it's not like anything groundbreaking happens. You
trans
know,
athletes can't win. Like if they are sort of middle of the pack, then no one cares. And if they do well, then all of a sudden it's like cheating. And
but she's not. She's from what this caller's saying that she's not even. She is middle of the pack.
She's won some, right, caller? She's won some events. Or is that
yeah?
Right?
But I guess I'm not positive if she has. It has been, you know, not kind of more mainstream events. But
right,
I guess my point is, like, even if she
once.
Even if she does, like, you know, that's golf. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You know, I go out there and I play. I'm a decent player. Sometimes I shoot the round of my life and I go out the next day and I just shit the bed. You know, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
They're trying to say it's like an unfair advantage, but just like all the evidence kind of points to the opposite of that.
Right, but yeah, like you said, like the science on that is pretty, like, shows that actually, like, after a certain amount of trans care, like there is but people, like, if as long as they hear it's a trans person participating, they just assume that it is some sort of unfair advantage despite that research. Like, people just don't know that.
I guess the association, the golf, association released a policy on trans women's participation in December, stating that they had meet one of three criteria: having been on hormone therapy for 24 months,
right,
reached a certain low testosterone level, having had a gender-affirming surgery and reached that level, or having been on puberty blockers prior to age 12.
And I mean, I think the audience knows for the most part why those are kind of bullshit criteria, but yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting story. I'll keep, you know, an eye on it, but, you know, I didn't even know there was a golf. I didn't even know there was Frisbee golf that existed as a professional league.
I mean, we didn't even really cover the Leah Thomas stuff that terribly closely, except to the extent that people start making it, like, in politics. But
but it's a similar thing with that Leah Thomas situation, that the person who's really gained a lot from it, Riley Gaines, the person that she competed against, the woman she competed against in one of her college meets, they don't talk about it a lot, but she tied with Leah Thomas for 5th place in the swim meet that they competed against each other at. Like, it wasn't that Leah Thomas dominated that swim meet and beat them all by 40 seconds. She didn't get a medal for a 5th place appearance, and now she's basically a right-wing commentator, and that's her entire bailiwick, Riley Gaines.
And also, I saw on Twitter a woman who assigned female at birth, but too much testosterone because of some sort of health issue and can't participate now.
So, like Semenya, Castor Semenya, or was that who's the track runner or a soccer player?
I think it was some thrower.
There are a few where even that's now becoming. I mean, part of it too, where it's too much testosterone for a woman athlete, even though they are literally biologically assigned women characteristics of birth.
Wow. And I imagine, like, some of us are headed towards so much low testosterone that, I mean, I appreciate the call. I mean, this is the thing, you know, did Kennedy say that he was on testosterone replacement therapy?
Yeah.
And I mean, you're increasing your testosterone level by like 8-fold. Honestly, like, I think, you know, I don't know what the average is for a 65-year-old man, 100, 200 or something like that. And like the testosterone replacement therapy goes up to 900. Like, I see, you know, his physique. I'm like, countdown until I do that. I guess, though, the thing is you have to keep doing it. Because your body stops producing testosterone. But The point being here that why is it okay for men to add testosterone? For biologically born men to add testosterone? Like, where's the outrage that they're becoming more manly?
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me. Daredevil says disc golfers should only be tested for marijuana use. Anyone not under the influence should not be allowed to play.
Exactly. Yeah, what are you doing?
I honestly thought when somebody was calling in about the disc golf pro league that it was a fake phone call. I just had no idea. I know people play disc golf, and I'm not dissing it, as it were. I'm so infused with the Vivek spirit. I've played around in my life. It's fun. I like to throw a frisbee. I just had no idea that there was a pro league. Lawful waffle. I always knew there was something wrong with the call-in portion of the show. I mean, you guys sit there and ready, and listeners are supposed to believe nothing nefarious is going on. Stinky display of public corruption. Charlie Jerk. Does RFK Jr. perhaps resent the Palestinian cause in part due to his father's assassination? No, he does not believe Sirhan Sirhan actually assassinated his father.
Yeah, supported his release.
Charlie Jerk. If you live in a deep blue or deep red state, would it be beneficial to vote for Cornel West? Maybe could help the Green Party reach a 5% threshold. I mean, if someone wants to do that, you know, I don't think that's, you know, horrific. I mean, particularly, I think I like Cornel West. I think that the Green Party is in desperate need for reform to focus on races that it can actually win.
Yeah, I'm not super, like, even if they did do that, do I think that they would turn into, like, say, the particularly workers' party that we need? I'm skeptical. I think it has a lot of problems.
Yeah. But at the very least, just on a practical level, like, why isn't there 5 Green Party Congress people?
Yeah. I mean, it happens, like Robin Wansley, the independent socialist councilperson in Minneapolis, took over her position from a Green Party person. And, like, yeah, I want to see more of that. If more of that happened, I would have a much more favorable, feeling toward the Green Party.
Having, like, members of the Green Party in Congress, I mean, Senate, I think is also a hard road, but it's not inconceivable to me. But have a member of the Green Party, like a couple of members of the Green Party in the House would be great, I think, particularly when you've got, things that this sort of narrow. They'd be put in a difficult position without a doubt. It's a very hard, situation to play, but they could give cover for, sort of like they would provide oxygen for, Democrats to move left. And, if there was, but, it's been,
I've been waiting for this my entire life.
30, yeah, exactly. And the only argument, again, I could imagine not voting for Cornel West in a place where the outcome for electoral votes is settled is the argument that in a race this close, the number of votes that the Democrat gets nationally could be important in terms of, like, dealing with, how a close race is resolved. But I think, I don't think, let me put it this way. I don't see any harm. It's not obvious to me that there's harm in voting for a Cornel West in a state which is not in play. If you're not in, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, if you're not in one of those states, and you want to express support for his positions, again, it's an expression of support, and it may help get to the 5%. I'm not sure.
But for me, it's like they've been the main progressive third-party option for my entire life, and they have 0 seats in the Senate, obviously 0 seats in the House, 0 seats in state upper chambers, 0 seats in state lower chambers.
They used to 20 years ago. They've gone backwards. Let's put it that way.
0 seats in territorial upper chambers, 0 seats in territorial lower chambers. Other elected officials, 136. So you're good, but those are rookie numbers.
Oh, you're not including Kristen Sinema.
Oh, yeah.
That worked out.
Right. Yeah, that was great. Exactly. Yeah, the worker party there.
Bill from Sacramento. I saw Sam on Letterhack, and it amuses me that his home background is essentially a series of gray boxes. All right, 5 more IMs. I'm working from, did that one. Golden Oyster Cult. The new plan does indeed differentiate between graduate and undergraduate loans, which makes 0 sense if it's supposedly income-based. My stepson is an engineer with a bachelor's, and I'm a lawyer, but he makes more than I do. His loans will be less than mine, and while Biden's plan does help, it strikes me as an extra layer of unnecessary gatekeeping that could have been removed. We want more working-class background, new lawyers, new lawyers and doctors. Without a doubt. There's no doubt that there is, like, more bureaucracy and gatekeeping than is necessary. I'm unclear as to why they just it needs to be simpler. But again, we'll see. Hitchens host, MR crew. I've noticed that ridiculing conservatives in person, especially with a small audience, perhaps in the office or around the proverbial water cooler, can be really effective if done right. For instance, a guy at work was making people laugh about some stupid trans joke, so I just reminded him that conservatives talk about the subject more than anybody else. I said something like, so what's the obsession, John? Why are you so angry if you can't predict a kid's genitalia based on their shirt or shoes or lip gloss, etc.? That's weird, dude. You're being weird. So just a touch of bullying, then convince the others that it's the bigot's position that's ridiculous and laughable and not the people supporting individual freedoms in gender and similar conversations, because I just made them laugh at the bigot's expense. The reaction is basically involuntary. Love you guys. Left is best. I mean, to a certain extent, that's sort of what we try and do around here.
The show.
Trek left. Retired at 54. This lady is not living the same life as most of us. My retirement plan is keeling over at my desk. All right, 2 more. Depressing sign of the times that a politician can spout anti-Semitic COVID conspiracies and Zionist propaganda in the space of a week, and no one is surprised. You have to admit, it's quite funny to imagine Christian Zionists thinking they're in on some sort of like divine long con. And the final IM of the day. Timur from the 5. Happy Newsday Tuesday, MR crew. A bunch of Metro grocery store workers in over 24 stores in the greater Toronto area are currently on strike. I'm sitting in front of a store near my house right now, watching them in action.
That's what it means to be a mighty man of valor.
And woman.
They seem really nice and very approachable. They're doing a great job of getting the message across. The message being that they're severely underfunded. I would love to call in and discuss their strike. Now it's being covered by the news. Can't do it today, but maybe tomorrow. Look out for a 647 number. Love you guys. Left is best. All right. El Conniption is really, really just couldn't see it. Sorry, El Conniption. I only read my previous IM. Apologies. Tomorrow on the program. Who do we have for guests tomorrow on the program?
We have Matthew Buttigieg, the attorney for
the
case at Sarah Silverman's case against ChatGPT.
Great.
And then Boltzmag's Cameron Joseph, who is going to discuss the issue 1 ballot measure in Ohio. That's coming up next Tuesday.
And then we got a dude named the real social justice warrior.
The actual justice warrior.
The
Sean
actual
Fitzgerald.
social justice worker. He was on with Tim Pool and Emma. Oh, Emma's not going to be here tomorrow. Well, she's going to be really sad she missed
She's
this.
going to hate missing that.
And he's going to come on. He wanted, he I guess, made a challenge to debate me and wants to go out to dinner with me on Tim Pool's show. Those
were separate asks.
The separate asks, one of which I will comply with, which is to have him on. And he was very impatient. I was away at a wedding that weekend and he had no cell service, and so
when the actual justice warrior comes knocking, you got to answer the call.
Yeah, I thought it was actually the real justice warrior, but where is it? Here it is.
I suppose all that fake social justice, all the SJWs.
I'll mention this tomorrow, but let's see. I reached out to him on the 25th, and let's see. His main issue, I asked him what he wanted to debate. My main issue is I've seen you downplay the significant increase in crime in New York City and nationwide since 2020. And then maybe he wants to talk about Daniel Penny. I don't know. So that's, I guess, what we're going to debate. He's going to tell us why it's wrong to downplay the significant increase in crime in New York City and nationwide since 2020. So
it's fascinating stuff.
It should be interesting. I'm not going to apologize.
He got sidelined on the Tim Pool debate, so we need to give him a little bit more time here.
Yep. So there it is. We'll have a debate with the actual justice warrior.
I don't know if child labor will come up, but that'd be interesting.
Why, is he in favor of child labor?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yep. 1,000%, I think he said.
1,000%?
Yeah, as long as it's done, in a careful way.
Oh, not the way that killed 3 kids over the past 2 months?
Not the way it's ever been done on this planet.
Right.
It could be done in a way that's helpful and stuff.
Folks, Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth